Welcome to If Taps Could Talk, a brand new series in association with Beamish. Lads, there's nothing better than an Irish pub, and let's face it, they're like sacred spaces here in Ireland. The best pub has the perfect spot for you to sit down and watch people go by. You know what, sometimes the decor hasn't been changed in a good while, and you know the barman has seen and heard it all. Pubs aren't just about drink, there's so much more to it. But you know what makes having a pint even better? That's sharing an experience with someone else. Across this series, we are going to be looking at some of the most iconic pubs in Ireland, the ones with genuine character, untold history, and bucket loads of charm. We'll be looking at what makes each pub so iconic and why it's held so dearly to the locals. So whether you're here for the company, the chat, or a pint, pull yourself up a chair and let's get started. Joining us today at If Taps Could Talk, frontwoman, songwriter, voice of a new generation of punk in Dublin. And you're listening to this now, you're going, what the hell? It's such an Irish thing, isn't it? If Taps Could Talk, our guest today is Karla Chubb. Cheers, Karla.
Cheers.
Oh, God. How are you?
I'm good, yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Is that such an Irish thing that when we say these nice things about people, you kind of go in on yourself going, ugh.
That doesn't sound right, does it? Who wrote this? Like, can you tell my mum?
So we are today in Shinay in
Yes.
Cork City.
Yeah.
What a pub.
Yeah, great pub. Yeah.
What's your memories of it? Like, you've been here a few times
Yeah, I've
before?
been here a few times with friends. As a musician, we've played Cork, obviously, a couple of times. We've met a lot of friends here, a lot of different bands. And today's one of those pubs you kind of just always end up coming back to, I think. It's got that, like, simultaneously Irish old man meets, like, dive bar energy, which I think is just exactly where I, myself, and Sprints feel kind of at home.
What I love about Beamish, when we talk about genuine character, it's seeping through the walls in here, isn't it?
It's literally stuck on all the walls. I think the character and the history and the stories. And I think that's the best thing about when you walk into a pub like Shinay is you can literally tell it's been like lived and like loved in, I think. And I think that's uniquely Irish, I think, in Irish pubs.
I was here last night and did music in the corner, and the girls were telling me that, like, that's every night of the week.
Yeah.
Just for your line of business, these type of spaces, they're really important to, you know, to keep in mind and make sure that this happens constantly, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's something you don't notice or you don't appreciate as much until you go away and travel as much as we do, that you walk into any pub in Ireland, there's music. They're everywhere. It's people singing, or it's on the background, or there's people literally performing. You can hear it from the streets when you're walking by pubs. And when you go away to Europe and the likes, that just doesn't exist. But it's so ingrained in our culture. And pubs like Shinay, that's where you're kind of, if you're not from a musical family, that is your first experience of music and performing music and the community that it can create and how important it is as part of like our storytelling culture. I think that's uniquely Irish as well.
I never thought of that, yeah, because like my family back home wouldn't have been a musical family, but they're a pub family. So when we went, that's where I probably would have got the music from, was that actually?
In Sprints, it's actually, I don't know how it happened, but each of us are the only musical child in our family. None of us had parents or grandparents that were like trad singers or anything, and I think that's rare in Ireland, especially to not have that kind of in your family. So I don't know what it was that made us seek that musical connection, but yeah, so pubs became the epicenter of our discovery of music, and you know, exploring that, and you know, chatting to people and figuring out like different genres and different ways to perform instruments, and just really like seeping into it.
What is it about the Irish pub? The ambience to it, like, can you put that into words of what it is about it?
They just feel alive, don't they? A little bit, like, no Weatherspoon shite going on here, really, is there? No, I think it's not just a pub, is it? Like, it is that the most stereotypically Irish thing to say, though? It's like, it's not just a pub, you don't understand. It's not about the pints, man. It's not the Beamish, it's the crack.
It's the genuine character and people coming in. But it is, because you find if you go to England or if you go, you know, on holidays.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
I don't know what it is. I think, honestly, they are lived in. Like, there's souls to them, you feel, a little bit. Like, James Joyce probably sat in that corner, you know, and wrote parts of Ulysses that I'll never understand, or whatever. But no, I think it's just culture, isn't it? That's all you can put it down to, really. And they're epicenters of, you know, where we meet and we chat and you know, think about all the things that are stereotypically Irish, like, drinks or wakes or weddings, or like they play a part in every kind of major moment. Like your communion, you end up in a pub. Confirmation, end up in a pub. Like christenings, probably in a pub. Like
people watching and listening to this now have gone, yeah, we went there. Yeah, we went there. Yeah, we went there.
Funerals, you always end up in a pub after, you know, these major moments in our lives, weddings, everything. Like it's a coming together. It's a community space, really. And a great community space at that, really.
And I kind of feel like it's the one thing that needs to probably be preserved in Ireland, isn't it? Like these sort of pubs.
Yeah, we need our own like
Sinead.
UNESCO heritage list of pubs, basically. Maybe you should start that. You should start your own Instagram.
This is a good idea.
Put little plaques on all of them.
I saw yesterday, when I came down here yesterday, and I actually saw that there's a pamphlet that some of these pubs have, like the Oval and Morton Lane, Sinead, great Beamish pubs, and they all have a list of, you know, go here, try here, and I did. I went around a few of them, and they all have something unique about them.
Yeah.
Like I went into, I think it was Mutton Lane yesterday, and I asked the girl, I ordered a Beamish, and I was like, can I go to the toilet? And she was like, yeah, if you just want to do it beside the girl over there. And I was like, that's just such a great wit. I stopped and she went, bye. And I just went, you wouldn't get that anywhere else,
No.
I don't think.
And I think if you think about any pub though, like Sinead, like it's got a lot of music culture, it's got like a little bit of like an old man pub energy, like a little bit of diver energy. But like, you're not going to find another pub that's exactly like this, even though there's ones that are similar. Like, there's always going to be something that's uniquely Sinead, or there's something that's uniquely the Oval. Like, they're Irish pubs, but everything has its own little defining character in it.
And the name of it as well, Sinead, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, it's such an...
Yeah.
It's such
Yeah,
an...
what
That's
more
it.
do you
Ah,
need?
Sinead,
Like, it's a
Sinead.
pub.
I kind of want to know why it's called Sinead.
It's a great name.
It's such an Irish word, that phrase that everyone uses. Sinead, Sinead.
Yeah.
Aoife, come here for a second, right? You're in this pub. How long have you been here?
About a year, but I've been drinking here.
Can you tell us why is it called Sinead? What's the history?
Well, it's that Irish humour of sarcasm. It's because of the funeral home right next door. It's like, well, Sinead,
That's it, the end of the
Which is-
road.
That's it in Irish. Sinead.
And wasn't that such an Irish thing where, you know, there was funeral homes and then they were adjoined by the
But what else
pubs?
are you going to do after a
Yeah,
funeral
yeah.
besides go for a pint? Like,
Yeah. You get the guys sneaking in. You run away from their aunt. She's like, no, okay, we're sneaking and just have a pint for like 5 minutes.
any ghosts?
I would be here at like, 2 in the morning and myself, and you do hear a lot of creaking. Like, oh, God, I don't want to be
That's
here.
just
by
Crossy on
myself.
It's not going to let me in.
Here
let me
after
in.
close.
Someone to tell me that there was something got to do with the wooden seats in here, that sometimes people have seen something in the wooden seats.
Apparitions.
Yeah, yeah.
But we have our busters. We have a buster, like a Cheltenham buster, because this would obviously historically be like a horse racing bar, and Mick Wilbut's, they're two regulars who would have been here a long,
Yeah, and they passed away.
and have passed away, so the buster is dedicated to them. But that I think that's probably the idea, is like that's the old fella who was sitting there, that's his stool.
Can you imagine being an American tourist coming over here and hearing that story? And then, because they don't get that anywhere else,
Yeah.
you know. We have that.
Yeah. And they're picky about their stools as well.
There's a pub I go to in Dublin that they have their names on the stool.
I love that's a life goal, isn't it?
That's when you know. That's when you know.
you made it. You're a serious pint man.
Yeah, you are. It is. Eva, thanks so much for that. It's
Thank
brilliant.
you.
So Sinead,
Sinead, that's it.
everyone. When you talk about yourself, the start, this is the, when you were growing up. Can you tell us a bit about, you kind of touched on that you weren't a musical family. So when did all that come about for you?
I think I've tried to explain this to friends and my partner and stuff before, and it's weird. It sounds a little bit, I don't know if sanctimonious is the right word, but maybe, I don't know, ethereal or bigger than us. But I just remember music always being a presence in my life. I was born in Dublin and actually moved to Germany for 5 years when I was a kid for my dad's job. So I grew up in Dusseldorf, and I was this ginger, freckly, pale girl in a class full of Germans, like trying to figure out who I was. And I remember very vividly like seeing Blondie on MTV for the first time, and that music video Maria came on. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I think I must have been like 3 years of age, and ever since then, every Christmas, every birthday, every holiday, all I asked for was a guitar. There's pictures of me with plastic drums and, you know, barons in the middle of Dusseldorf, like just trying to make any noise I could. But it was just always something that was around. And after years and years of badgering, my mom said, you know, if you do 1 year classical guitar, I'll let you get an electric guitar and you can play the music that you want to play. And
Wow.
Eventually, I think I picked it up when I was 14 and never put it back down.
Who were you listening to? So you said Blondie. Was there anyone else in the early years, the formative years? Like, was it cheesy? Like, are we talking?
I mean, like, my first gig was Westlife, and I've no shame in that. And I went to see them about 5 times. So you have to take the cheese with the culture. I think that's part of it. That makes you appreciate it. But honestly, I was one of those kids who I listened to absolutely everything. I used to find bands. I listened to a lot of like Blondie, Fleetwood Mac, a lot of Elvis and Cat Stevens because my mom loved the two of them. I got into like Johnny Cash. I got into, you know, as the angst grew, I got into the likes of Nirvana and CKY and all those Tony Hawk soundtracks that permeated all of our youth. But I kind of was that person who just wanted to learn everything I could, learn every genre. I'd download like entire discographies of bands I'd heard one song from just to consume it. I just became really like hyper fixated on bands for a while.
Were you writing when you were in your teens?
Yes.
Like, was that a way to, you know, teenage angst, or, you know, were you starting to feel emotions that you didn't feel before, and all of a sudden this was your avenue to get into it?
Yeah, I think what I've realised is that writing, in whatever sense, whatever way or shape or form that looks, like English and history were always my favourite subjects in school. I always really loved to read. I was like a really voracious reader when I was a kid. And writing, whether it was like regurgitating like my feelings off the top of my head, or like poetry or stories or whatever, was always kind of my epicenter of understanding and processing not only what happens internally, but what happens in the world around me. And I think I struggled a lot when I was a kid with my mental health, and like writing did become that kind of avenue for me to express that. And I think it's still honestly taken until like probably this year everything's really started to click into place and really understand myself. But writing is my way of just processing information. I have ADHD, so I struggle a lot with focus and information and understanding things, and, you know, trying to stay level. And I struggle a lot with like routine or like the travel and stuff. But that's why the creative arts are so important, and that's why like the typical school education and that pathway isn't the only way. And there's so much out there, and so much richness and culture and story and ways for us to understand each other. And that's why like spaces like this, I think, exist, and in Ireland are more than just a pub. They're community hubs, and they're the centre of our social circles, and that's where you kind of discover all these things. But yeah, writing is it's the only way I can see what happens or understand what happens to me and actually make sense of it and let it kind of digest and sit.
Do you write goals down? Do you have something that, whether it's a notes app or it's a copybook, that it's like
like a literal bucket list?
Like a little, yeah.
Honestly, no. I remember that when I was struggling through my leaving cert, and I struggled a lot in school with the way that you're supposed to learn, obviously with my lack of ability to focus. But I remember I had like 3 things written on like Post-its to get myself through, and it was start a band, record an album, win a Grammy. And 2 of those things have been ticked off. So 17-year-old Karla would be very happy at the moment. But honestly, we never started Sprints with any grand ambitions. We just love music, and it's something that we discovered we have to do to feel like alive, honestly, in a sense, to feel like we are serving some kind of purpose or just happy within ourselves. It's just what we always come back to. I think we all had gaps in our lives where we didn't play, and they just weren't moments that we were really fulfilled. So all we wanted to do was make music and do a few gigs and see what happened. And, you know, there was a lot of hard work that went on in the background, a lot of years of sacrifice, but I'm not gonna lie, like there's a lot of luck involved.
Early days Sprints, can you explain what that was like?
It was a lot of rehearsals out in Jack's house in Coolock. He had I always call it a shed, and his parents always get so fucking mad at me because it's not a shed. It's a beautiful like granny flat essentially.
It's a playroom.
Yeah, it was a playroom. Yeah, but we used to just go out and kind of jam and write and hang out. And honestly, it was a reason to do what we do, but just not do it in a pub for at least one night a week. And we would just kind of sit there and hang out and listen to music, and we would write a lot. And then we kind of started playing some gigs, and I think when Sprints had started, myself and Jack had been in bands before. They never really went anywhere. We didn't really feel that fulfilled creatively. So I think we started Sprints, must have been 2019. And we brought Sam in on bass, and it just really clicked. We were kind of like wanting to go after this heavier sound that we always listened to in our youth, like the likes of Nirvana and Queens of the Stone Age and Amyl and Sniffers and Savages and those kind of like heavier kind of punk influences. And we kind of, I think we sold out like Whelan's upstairs, and we did a single and a couple shows around Dublin, and COVID hit. And we were like, right, we kind of felt like we were on the right path here. And now everything in the entire world has kind of ceased and doesn't exist anymore. But that's really when I think we hit our stride. And I know COVID was a really traumatizing, difficult time for people, but for the band, it honestly ended up being so fruitful and probably the best thing that could have happened, because we couldn't work, we couldn't go to our jobs, we were stuck in our houses, even though we couldn't hang out, we were kind of forced to write.
What was the state of punk music when you guys were coming up? Like, was there people to look at Dublin-wise, or were you going, this is our gap, this is us, we're going to be this?
I honestly don't think I ever thought I would end up in this genre of music, to be honest. I don't know what it was that really connected, and I think particularly as a woman in like a heavier genre, and it's very male dominated, that you can kind of count in one hand the number of women that you could look up to. And in Ireland, like obviously Dolores O'Riordan and Sinead O'Connor, which I think are two voices that didn't become appreciated till much longer or much later in life than probably they deserved. But even in a global sense, you're looking at the likes of Debbie Harry, Stevie Nicks, Patti Smith, and then you're kind of like really start to rack your brain. You're like, okay, who else is there? And that was something I really struggled with, was that particularly with ageism or age in music, like you really felt like you had a window of opportunity to make it or start in music. And I always felt like I was kind of chasing a clock that didn't really exist. And I didn't, I just don't really remember having a lot to look up to, I think. And
Which I think is a bonus, and that probably even helped you even more to go, look, this is our niche. This is how we can grow into who we are.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's that phrase, what is it? If you see it, you'll believe you can be it, kind of thing. And I think that was a lot of the confidence that held me back from doing music for a long time, was I didn't really have anyone that I knew or could look up to, or that was tangible. Like, right, they managed to do it. Even in Dublin, I think, or in Ireland as a whole, most people in music think that. They count on one hand, like the bands that have managed to break it out of our small industry. And it took me a long time. I think it's only when we started doing like all ages shows and, seeing people on the road, and they'd talk like, my daughter like loves you, or my son, or whatever, or my kid is trans, and they just really appreciate like what you do, and then you're like, right, like I didn't really have anyone to look up to, or someone that I saw was like, that girl plays guitar and managed to make it out of Dublin and do music. So I was like, right, maybe I can be that. And you're like, if you can inspire one kid to pick up an instrument, like that's all we want to do, really.
That's special, isn't it? Like seeing a mum or a dad with their child coming to a gig like that. Like that like even me, I kind of feel that's emotional to see that a parent would do that and go, no, I'm going to bring you, your friends may not know this music, but I'm bringing you because you like it. Absolutely.
And I think that's the nice thing about that kind of music. Like obviously punk has its roots and has a really long history, particularly like rooted in the 80s. And I'd imagine that's quite generational. Now, it wasn't exactly our family's genre of music, but it's like maybe the generation starts with us a little bit in that sense, and we can pass it on to younger people in our lives. I think there's such a search for culture at the moment, particularly with the younger generation. I think those kind of like, like we had in school, we'd have like the goths and like the sporty kids and like the posh girls and like their Abercrombie and that kind of crack. Like that was our subcultures. And now it's just so effervescent, like, and just there's so many subgenres and subcultures and like categories. I think there is. It's really good that like I'd love to see like what the Cure like think about them like becoming like TikTok songs now.
They probably find it difficult or different.
I'd say so, but at the end of the day, like I would imagine that's what people thought about like CDs and like MP3s and LimeWire back in the day, like that I used for all of my absolutely 100% legal music discovery, obviously as a kid. But like that's just technology, isn't it? It has to change.
You're traveling around Ireland, and Sprints is now starting to. How did you have to kind of? I have my job because you're working full time.
Yeah.
On top of this, how did you divide all that? That must have been tough.
Incredibly tough, yeah. I think I don't think you can ever underestimate the effect that stress can have on you as a person. But I would imagine that it's probably the narrative that anyone out there who wants to play music knows. Like your mom was going to be on your shoulder being like, go to college and get a degree and just be sensible and get your background. I just know what, I am glad I did because I've had such amazing jobs and experiences and I met great people and I studied English in college, which of course is a very fruitful degree.
Where'd you go?
To have. I went to UCD.
Lovely.
Yeah, so I did English, psychology and philosophy in arts. And, I loved it because it's the only thing I could imagine myself doing for another 3 or 4 years was reading. But again, struggled in college with the learning and with the focus and the autonomy I think that was required.
Did you find that, because I did arts as well, and I found that when, you were in school, you were doing 9 to 4 or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden you were brought into college and it was...
Like, make your own schedule, kind of.
Do what you want.
Yeah.
How did that sit with you?
And not well. I was like, well, what I want to do is sit in bed. So that's what I did. I got a job at Nando's and that was the highlight of my life at the time. That's where I made all my best friends and, I loved working. And I think that's what I loved being active and I loved talking to people and, being animated and feeling like alive. And so I remember I got a job in college and just like worked and continued, finished my degree, got jobs and, I think when Sprint started to take off, I was working in media and publishing at the time and my boss Tom was like super sound and really into music and he hired me. He was like, I'm just going to expect a phone call one day. He'd be like, listen, I'm in Japan, I'm not coming back, sorry. And he was super supportive, but it was very tough and I think it's something that people struggle with a lot and it's incredibly real part of the music industry that there just isn't a lot of money and you don't really know whenever there is going to be. And to be completely honest, like we're not making money still.
The support in Ireland, it needs to be more, doesn't it? Whether that's government or
Absolutely.
venues and all that. Like, what's that like being inside it? Can you kind of...
Well, if you look at pubs and venues in Ireland, they're shuttering. Like, they're struggling so much. And these are our cultural homes. Like, this is where like artists are born. And if you think about times like COVID and when essentially the world and industry ceased, like what did we all turn to feel connected to each other? It was the arts. It was whether you're watching Netflix, like that's a creative art. That's film and that's TV. Like we turned to books and we were turning to each other and like in moments of need, that's what we all turn to, but it's always the last thing to be valued. And I think particularly in Ireland, there isn't any supports really. Culture Ireland and Music for Ireland do the best they can with what they're given. But you have places like these, like was the Dean Arts Centre or something in the middle of town that was studios, homes to, dozens of artists, and they shutter it, it's turned into a privatised centre, and you're just kind of like, what is the hope? And I think it's the very unfortunate reality of any musician in Ireland. It's not if, it's when I'm going to have to move to London.
I was at the Brits and I saw one of the lads on and who was it? I said in a speech, he was like, if you want people like me to be winning awards like this in 10 years time,
you need to keep investing. So
what would you see that in? Is that opening up creative centres for people? Is that?
I think it would be things like that we tried. I think it was Catherine Martin who introduced the basic income scheme for artists. I think they opened it for a trial where artists were paid a living wage. I think it was maybe €300 a week, which we all know, particularly in Dublin, is not a living wage. It's a scraping by to live wage. But anyway, it would be amazing. Things like that I think it's this idea, like we have grants for people starting businesses and enterprises and, you're paid essentially what's similar to a dole to start your business, to be able to survive, pay your rent, pay for food and, you know, get this off the ground. I don't understand why the creative arts are treated differently. It is a business. It's a multi-million euro business that we export every year. It's one of the major reasons people for tourism in Ireland. I mean, it is our culture and our history, our writers, our musicians. Like, people don't come to Dublin to see the breweries. They come to Dublin because of James Joyce and because of Oscar Wilde and because of the cranberries, and they come to Ireland because of the cranberries and, you know, the music and the beautiful, like, natural things that exist there. So
Right, that's here.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Karla Margaret. Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Lovely. When you talk about coming out, right?
Let's
go straight into
Let's
it,
get
right?
straight in.
Do you find that it's dying at the minute? The coming out stages is dying at the minute for people that are growing up compared to me and you.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great that that didn't become like something that you have to worry about for your entire life?
Yeah.
Kind
How was it
of.
for you?
It was very tough. I think that was a lot, like, my mental struggle, I think a lot was with acceptance and identity and, like, struggling with what I wanted to do. And, you know, I think it's very easy for people to dismiss these and be like, oh, but you get over it, you know, like, it's not a big deal and blah, blah, but it's a massive part of your identity, unfortunately. And, you know, I think we were lucky to have, like, the marriage referendum and the abortion referendum and repeal, that we saw, like, this great societal change. But, you know, I remember when the marriage referendum was coming around and there was a lot of no around, and there were people not shy about saying they're going to vote no. And we never still kind of permeates, I think.
You don't forget that, do you?
You don't. And I don't think you forget any of that. And I always find it incredibly tough to take, I think, any of that from anyone and find a reason I fully believe is valid. I feel like everyone's entitled to their opinion and their beliefs, but I find it very tough to swallow that majority of the time it was due to religious reasons or the church or, okay, like, whatever, I've got this faith, okay, I respect your faith, but you're telling me the same church that's committed these unspeakable atrocities in this country and have done way worse is the reason that you're going to tell me I don't deserve to exist equally as you in society. I've never been hurt by a drag queen, but I've been hurt by a lot of other people in life, okay? And they haven't been in the George.
That's a good way to think about it. I never thought
Like,
about that.
I think a lot of this, I think a lot of it comes down to, honestly, vanity. And vanity in believing that your beliefs are more important than others, that your way of life or your core values are more important than others. And at the end of the day, I think it's just like, do no harm unto others that you wouldn't do unto you. And like that, wherever I got that from, whether it was Charmed on TV or the Bible, I don't know. But, you know, I just think... yeah, there's a lot bigger things to worry about, but it took me a long time to come to terms with that and have that confidence, I think, in myself. And honestly, whatever it is they say about your 30s, like, it's so true. I couldn't give a fuck anymore, honestly. Like, I spent so much of my life being judged or criticised, particularly being kind of outspoken as a voice on stage. I kind of realised people are going to criticise me anyway. I am the bullseye for the band. If we do anything or speak out or, you know, protest or whatever, I'm the person they're going to go after. There's the open letters on Substack or Reddit or Twitter are addressed to me, not to the boys. So I'm like, listen, they're going to talk shit anyway. Might as well give them some fun to talk about.
How do you deal with that? Like, do you, especially if it's LGBTQ plus stuff?
Oh, if it comes to that, I won't take a effing bar of it. I'm like, I'm like, if you still think that in this day and age, girl, you're the one with the issues, not me. And I will not. I will stand up for any person. If it's a stranger in a bar, in a restaurant, in a pizzeria, I don't give a shit. Like, I will not stand for any of that. And I think that is difficult sometimes for people to, I think, witness or be around. But honestly, I think I have this real lack of fear about what's going to happen to me.
That's good, though.
And I will stand up for anyone. And, you know, if it's stuff about me and the way I look, there's a lot of that still, unfortunately, which is tougher to swallow. But if it comes to my sexuality or my beliefs, I couldn't give a fuck, because honestly, I'm going to think you're wrong. So I'll stand by it.
Do you look back at your coming out and going, I'd love to do it again? Did you enjoy it enough? Because you said it was difficult for you coming out. I sometimes go back and I'm thinking, God, the older I get, the less wild I am.
Yeah, I didn't.
That created a memory just there.
I didn't really have a coming out. Like my coming out was kind of like me being, I'm not gonna say forced out, but quite literally me being in a bar and I was kissing a girl, kind of in secret. And I went to the bathroom. My best friend Steph quite literally kicked the door open and went, "Are you gay?" And I went, "Yeah, I think so." And she was like, "Right, that's grand. Are you coming downstairs?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." And that was it, kind of. And you know, she's still my best friend to this day. But I think it was that kind of like gentle nudge out the closet I needed, because my brother is queer, and he had a big coming out. I remember hearing about it the next day in school. He was like, "Heard your brother's gay," and I was like, "What?"
What was it about the 2003 to 2008 of that? You know, because I think from what I've heard now is that like there's a lot of queer people in schools now, and it's just whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas with us, it was like
You were talking to town.
Elsa dying in Home and Away. Like it was, you know. What did I use?
Did you hear? Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
God, they're gay.
I might catch it off him. You know, like it was.
It is, but it isn't rude. I think honestly, we were the generation that made it a little bit. I'm not gonna say normal, because it's not normal. But I think it just became. It's like that study where they're like, why is everyone gay now? And they show that study of like left-handedness and how it was considered like to be a sign of the devil or something. And then it's like when they prove that to be complete bullshit, it's like, why is there so many more left-handed people now? It's because now it's not weird to be left-handed. But yeah, like I think it's great. Like that's all you could have wanted. Like I hated how much I struggled with it, and it's all internalized homophobia yourself. Like I would sit in my room like, please don't be gay, please don't be gay. Like you already want to do music, like life is gonna be tough enough. You have to be gay as well. But once you come to terms with it, like it's amazing, and you know I couldn't love my partner anymore, and like we have a beautiful life, and you've managed to like do amazing things, and I don't think life would be as fun or as rich if we weren't.
That's good. And I can see it in your face, like it's the proper glowing out of you. It's good.
It's just so much more fun.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, like you're welcome. Sorry, drag culture, music, the arts. I don't know what it is about music and the creative arts, but I think queer culture has always been rooted in it. Like even look at David Bowie, who is bisexual, back when it wasn't even known really what bisexual was, and like brought kind of like I think was definitely influenced by like the likes of drag culture. And stuff. And you have people like CMA obviously now who bring drag culture into their music and Chapel Roan, and you know it's a beautiful thing.
Looking at music and streaming and all that, I am a devil for if I post anything on Instagram, I'm constantly watching the figures. And I've learned a piece recently of not reading comments. I've just had to stop. Not that they be mean, but you're on your phone, like you're going out for dinner with your other half and you're kind of going like this.
Yeah.
Is Spotify and all that kind of like that? Are you watching the streams?
I think it's very tough. I think in anything where you can be compared, like in media or in music, or I'd imagine like being a writer and stuff the same. Anything where it's like there's sales figures or there's numbers, concerts, obviously ticket sales are kind of like the benchmark for us. I think it's very tough, and I still struggle with that to this day, where I'll see bands even in Ireland who've maybe started after us and they might get slightly bigger opportunities, or they might get like a bigger support slot, or you'll see they're like following on Instagram like catch up to yours like a lot quicker. And I do think that probably some of it, I tell myself, is that like unfortunately most of the time they are all male bands, and I do think that naturally it's just a little bit I'm not gonna say easier. People all work incredibly hard, but it's just the way the industry is laid out. You know, there's a little bit still. It's
frustrating.
It is. I think it's tough to swallow when you're working your ass off and you're working so hard, and you're kind of like, when's our chance or our shot kind of gonna come? But you really have to remember that like what we've managed to do is in its own right like more than we thought we ever could, and it's a lot more than some people ever get to do in their lives. It's an incredible privilege to even have the opportunity to do this full time, and you know we wouldn't have been able to if we hadn't worked for years and saved and put ourselves in this position. And not everyone has that. People sometimes have families and shit they have to look after, and you know we're 4 young-ish and childless single-ish people, and we can kind of chase this. And luckily we've got partners and friends and family that are willing to, I think, they sacrifice alongside you a lot of the time.
Is this your therapy?
Music.
Is that what, people have different things?
Yeah, some people talk to a therapist and pay like 100 quid an hour. I shout on a stage to like 700-ish people every couple of days. But yeah, and the crowds are getting bigger and the shouting is getting louder. But absolutely, like music is my way of processing. It is my therapy. And I think that's what I struggled with before when I was writing, not for other projects, but when I was figuring out my identity, I guess, as a writer. Just never really felt that real or honest, and that's the crux of everything we do now, is honesty and authenticity, and it's always going to be based and rooted in real life and real experience. So some of the songs on the album, like I guess like Shadow of a Doubt or Cathedral, which kind of struggle with like mental health and acceptance and like the Catholic Church and those views that are pressed upon you.
They're big topics. This is the thing,
Yeah, and they're big things that we grow up with. Like it's like these pressures. There's a song on the album called Up and Comer, which is essentially about like being considered like up and coming and the pressure you're under as a female artist, and this idea I talked about earlier about feeling like I'm racing against a clock, or that I'm going to age out of the industry, or that I have to, I can't just play the guitar. I have to play the guitar super well. Like, I think there's this whole issue that women can't just passively like participate in hobbies or skills. Like if you look at like gaming, because they get so much abuse online, they can't just pick up a guitar, they can't wear a band t-shirt, you get that like name 5 albums, like are you really a true fan? Like that kind of shit. Like I can't just passively enjoy something, I have to be the best at it if I'm a girl. And that I really struggle with. And people can't tell you that doesn't exist, because I didn't invent that narrative. I didn't invent the struggles I have with body image or the way I look or my age. Like those are real things that, on a narrative that's been created by other people, and it's pressed upon you, and it's very difficult to realise that and to break out of it and to stop caring about it. And that's what songs like Up and Comer are about. It's this kind of like, I feel like I have to prove myself, even though I'm happy within myself, but I feel like I could be cut down and criticised just by saying, well, she doesn't play his guitar as well as this guy, or she can't sing as well as this one, or like blah, 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 blah. Like I have to be the best, I can't just be good. I'm so happy to embrace my mediocrity. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone that I'm the best guitarist or the best writer or the best musician or singer or whatever. I'm not, I'm just a girl from Dublin who picked up guitar when she was 14 and started writing. But like, I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to give it my all. And I will be the best front woman to come out of Dublin since Sinead O'Connor. Like, I'll give it my best. But like, you don't have to be the best to try it. And that's what I want girls to think, is like, pick up the drums. You don't have to be John Bonham. You don't have to be Jimi Hendrix on the guitar. You can just be you and just do it and have fun.
Are you building for the next person that's coming up? So I'm thinking Pillow Queens, CMAT.
Yeah.
Have they built for you guys to come up? Like, is that how it happens through, all these tours of all these Irish women that are going around, that the next one coming up, there's a ladder here for you to lift up to the next?
I would absolutely. I don't think there is a person in music in Ireland at the moment who isn't trying to leave the door open behind them. I think you can't discount the work that people like Pillow Queens, Gilliband and Fontaines have done to open the doors for Irish music. They've given the spotlight to Ireland. They've done the hard work and the groundwork, particularly Pillow Queens for female and queer artists. They've really shone a light on us, and all that talent was always here. We just needed a chance to let it out, I think, and to be given the chance to have this like export ready kind of phrase always floats around. But they opened the door, and we're going to kick it open after us as well. And that's why I think any tour we've ever done, we've always ensured that there was at least like a 50% gender split to ensure that we're bringing majority female artists or female presenting artists or identifying artists with us on tour. We brought the likes of Chalk and Adore on our entire UK tour. Last time that was in Kentish Town Forum, which is like a 2.5K cap London venue, because these are opportunities we would have loved to have, and that's what we want to do. If you're not going to share that spotlight and ensure that Irish music continues to grow, I think it's an incredibly selfish and wasted opportunity.
And a different sort of Irish music as well. I think we've kind of grown to kind of I think people outside looking in sometimes thinks, oh, we're the Irish music of, you know, hiddly diddly. We're not that anymore. Like,
No,
we're...
there's such a rich, like even like the hip hop scene in Ireland at the moment is absolutely booming. You've like a Khaki Kid who's blowing up, an incredible artist. I mean, even like the likes of like Cork have such a spotlight on them now with like Cliffords and Cardinals who are managing. Like Cardinals just got announced for support Fontaines. Like there's such a rich and beautiful culture of music across genres, like across influences. And whenever you go abroad, no matter what festival it is, the first thing you always do, what we do, is you scan the list for the Irish bands and you see if they're on the same day as you, and when you're not performing and if you can go see them, you go and see them. And that's what you do. And you end up meeting them after, and there's a beautiful community. It's great.
Gigs this year, what have you got? There's a couple of biggies.
There's a couple of biggies,
Irish biggies.
Yeah, last year was crazy. 103 shows across 2 or 3 continents. Like, I just feel like, yeah, honestly, I remember when we had 7 left and we were in Europe in December. We started on January 5th and our last day of tour was December 17th. So it was a long year, but grueling. A lot of changes, personal life and in the band, obviously, because Karla, my guitarist, left. But you kind of feel like if you survive that and we come out of that stronger and even more close than ever before, we'll be fine. But this year, thankfully, a lot less insane, a lot more controlled. I think the beauty of it is as you grow, and like touch wood, we continue to grow, that the shows get bigger, so the frequency becomes smaller. But yeah, there's definitely a very big Irish one coming at the end of this year.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Are you drained sometimes because there's so much emotion in your lyrics that every night when you're singing them, do you need a moment to yourself afterwards where you kind of go, whoa, because you're reliving these things constantly, and then you're also reliving whether it's, you know, queer, whether it's, you know, mental health, whatever it is, you're reliving these things every night, and then you're reliving everyone else's because you can see them in the crowd and they're feeling it.
Yeah.
Do you have a minute to yourself, 2 minutes to yourself?
It can be incredibly tough. It is emotionally draining, and I struggle with socializing. I think my social battery gets drained quite quickly, and people obviously want a lot from you. That's so understandable. Like, of course, you want to make sure, you have to remember everyone's there for potentially their first time. So you try and put your best performance out there, but I'm incredibly lucky that the boys in the band, like, they're like my brothers. They're so supportive. I don't know where I'd be, honestly, in life without them. And, you know, if they see me after show, like, sometimes the emotion does surprise you and catch up to you. I'll get off stage and I'll like burst into tears, or I'll physically feel sick because I've exerted so much of myself that your body just doesn't know what to do with the adrenaline. But they're incredibly supportive. They'll be like, listen, you go sit in there, we'll stand in the door, no one's allowed in, we'll do your gear, we'll pack down, take a minute. Sometimes I go to merch because people want me to sign stuff, and I don't go to merch. You're fine, you don't have to do it every single night. You know, step outside, whatever, like, it's going to be fine. We are a family unit. But it does. Sometimes the emotion can sneak up on you, but that's what we want from people, really, isn't it? Is that
the electric energy that you feel in that room.
That's what you want people to experience. And I think that's what makes Sprints special, is what I would say is, you know, the music's incredibly emotive. It's very autobiographical. It's like ferocious in its energy. There's a lot of rage in there, but a lot of rage in the sense of anger that needs to be vented, but in a form of catharsis. And, you know, whether it's about identity or acceptance or sexuality or disillusionment with the world or whatever we might be feeling, if you step into that room for that show, I am not going to let you leave until you're singing, clapping and sweating to your heart's content. And you know what? Some people go to the gym, some people go to boxing classes. I get on stage and you kind of like push all this energy out of you and you have this release and you kind of feel like you can take a breath and breathe again and continue, I think, in life.
But you know what? Today's been absolutely brilliant. Like, listening to everything, your storytelling, I can see why your music does so well, because you've got a way with words, I find, with everything. And you're colourful and you're a conversationalist, which I love as well. And this is what about being in a pub is about.
Yeah.
So all I can say is, Sinead.
Sinead, cheers.